Hi guys. So this is taking place the day after Thanksgiving. This is Black Friday today, and it's still cool. This is actually, it's funny because I was thinking that there might be fewer people, but no, we got more. So anyway, so let's go ahead. And let's start with something interesting. So yesterday, during Thanksgiving, I was visiting a group of friends, and Jen was there as well. And one of them was talking about, she was looking into Taoism or Taoism. And remember before I was mentioning a Confucius idea of don't do unto others what you wouldn't have done unto yourself. And the Christian perception would be do unto others as you would have done unto you. And this sparked an idea like with someone else, and she was going into Taoism. And if anyone knows, the Chinese word for the reason why it's called Taoism is the Tao is, or the Dao is called the way. It means like the path, the way. And you would know that as well from like things that we've done before. Now, what does Christ call himself?
The way.
The way.
And so she was interested in wondering if there were any correlations between this. And then last night, I just happened to have oodles of time on my hand. And so I was looking at some stuff and, oh, did that digging get deep? So let me clarify something real quick. Yeah, you have to understand something about the trade routes. I'm sure basically everyone here has heard of the Silk Road. Now, the formation of that took place about 2 centuries before Christ, but its grandest state was about 600 years after Christ. But you have the Silk Road was basically like the main way for merchants to trade. You had 2 kingdoms between Rome and China, and so what they would do is they would really monitor trade routes. So, but the thing is, there is no actual evidence that the philosophical ways got passed between the cultures. But when you look at the wording of things, it seems as if that could very well be the case. And that's what people have assumed before. If you actually look, there's actually research into stuff like this, but you can't say anything concretely because there's no actual textual evidence of the transmission of ideas at that time. But we know how human culture works. What was Genesis was a big refute to the surrounding cultures of the time. And so you have the concepts that are being presented. In my opinion, there's a lot of similarity in certain things. I want to take a look at a particular website that I just found before we had study today. So let's go ahead. We're talking about a lot of stuff today. So what?
What? Glitching.
Are we? Oh no. Yeah. Usually it's that way. At the very beginning. Hopefully not too much. Okay, we'll see.
I want that.
Okay, yeah, maybe we are glitching a little bit, but okay. If I have to, I'll just... Oh, come on. It was already up and ready to go by the time we started.
Yeah, because I wasn't allowed to look at it.
Nope. Of course. Of course, that's just how it be. Oh, there we go. Yeah, it was already ready to go when we started, so I don't get it. Anyway, so here we go. So we got the parallel things, the 4 mystical traditions. Let's take a look. The way. You got Jesus, you got Krishna. Does anyone know what religion that's a big god in? Hindu. Yeah, and then Buddha, of course, Buddhism, and Lao Tzu, which is the writer of the Tao Te Ching. Now, let's take a look at the 4 different readings here. So the kingdom is not coming. I'm going to see if I can turn this so that you can see better. If you want to. Okay. Jesus said, the kingdom is not coming with signs to be observed. The kingdom of God is within you. That's from Luke. And then you have Krishna saying, those who seek oneness ceaselessly find the Lord dwelling in their own hearts. Lao Tzu says, the way is empty, yet contains all. Words cannot describe it. Better that one should look for it within. Buddha says, to begin the journey in the way, first, set yourself straight. You are your only master. There are some stark differences between them, but there are stark similarities as well. And so let's go to another one here. So let's take a look at this one. In the beginning, there was the void, the one without name or form. In this one is the being in whom all things exist. This is the living one. Now, Lao Tzu wrote the Tao Te Ching about 550 years before Christ was born. And he didn't write it, his students wrote it, I think. It was something like that. There's a whole history thing on there. I mix up Confucius and Lao Tzu a lot. And then you have Mencius, and then you have all the other ones. But anyway, in the beginning, and then you have Jesus, like with the Gospel of John. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. All things through him came into being. Without him, nothing at all came into being. In him was life, and the life became the light of men. And the light appears in the darkness, and the darkness had not apprehended it. But the thing is, though, this is very, very simple.
Yeah.
And then you have once all was darkness, the all remained unseen within it, lacking the same qualities, unknown and not knowable, as if in deep. Now there is a bigger difference here, but I think there's a very strong similarity here. Let's go ahead. Unless one is born anew, he will not be able to see the kingdom of God. Unless one is born of water and the spirit, one cannot enter the kingdom of God. That which is born of flesh is flesh, of spirit is spirit. In gathering your vital energy so that you can create agility, have you achieved the state of a newborn child, and cleansing your inner vision, have you purified all its dullness. I'm sorry, this is really cool. Do not accumulate. Oh, this is a general truth though. Like if you're talking about like it being no, that's not one. No, that's not one. There was something really. Oh yeah. There's no pleasure in pain for others. Yeah. So you look at the similarity between these two. In this one. And Buddha is a derivative of Hinduism, but these three were very, very close to one another in terms of like geography. But this thing here, though, there's a similarity between these things. Okay, so we get the general idea here, right? That I personally think it's really interesting comparing the phrasing. Now, when I was at Thanksgiving yesterday, I was looking at the whole concept of the Golden Rule, and there was one in Egypt that said in the Middle Kingdom, 1,500 years before Christ, where it was like, do unto others so that they themselves do. And the concept is it's more like to pass it forward, to pay it forward type of a mentality. So there are differences, but I think it's really interesting that you have very similar wording, very similar phrasing when it comes to certain concepts. And Lao Tzu lived 500 to 600 years before Christ did. That I think that's notable. And the Silk Road had just started to become like a major influence in the Western world. And yeah, I think I just wanted to start with that because we were talking before about how Genesis 1 to 11 is like a direct refute of the surrounding cultures. Remember that man was not created from mud or clay, but was created from dry dirt. Which is a very specific type of a very specific distinction. There was no water in the mix there. Another thing was with Noah versus Gilgamesh. Like, what came first, the raven or the dove? Like, did the dove go out first? Did the raven go out first? Which way? Like, but they're completely opposite from one another. You have these stark differences. So when you have Confucius, which is not technically Taoism, but it's very, 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 very close. Because they were around the same time. Anyway, when you have a Confucius that says, "Don't do unto others as you wouldn't have done unto yourself," then Christ said, "Do unto others as you would have done unto yourself." There's a very it's very interesting, a slight nuance, but it really packs a punch. And I think today, when we're looking at the difference between the Taoist doctrine and the Christian doctrine, the similarity is rather striking. I didn't know if anyone had any thoughts on these things before we even went into something much more controversial. So,
I just had a fleeting thought. I think it's interesting that with the intellect that God gave people, that you can, and possibly, probably, maybe some spiritual help along the way from Elohim, that men can come up with good things that are good and the way to live that are similar because we have a similar image.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
But with taking that knowledge to ourselves in all these cultures where you look at all the different ones, even though there are the similarities there, on our own, we just can't get there. It seems like because everyone fails. Every single one fails, including Christianity.
Yes.
Because the mantle that people have taken up in the name of Christ is failing.
Mm-hmm.
Because we've taken that knowledge to ourselves, and it's the way we want it, like going along with traditions and making up traditions and things to follow instead of trying to stick as close to what God says as possible. We've taken that to ourselves, and that which is called Christian today has and is failing, and it's going to take Christ coming back to save it. But I believe, but just to look at those things, how similar they are, and even out of the mouth of Christ, that those beliefs and entities, like groups and religions and entities that have taken that up, have all failed and do fail and will fail until. I mean, that's just a thought that crossed my mind.
I'm gonna throw a slight monkey wrench in that.
You're going to disagree?
No, not really.
No, I'm teasing.
Similar thought, but this is. We were talking before about Michael Heiser's The Unseen Realm, and which I basically very much agree with, except, and I've mentioned this before. He thinks that the divine council is completely eradicated in order to allow humanity to join the divine council. It's almost like all the former members of the divine council are put out while the humans are allowed in. And you and I did talk about this. So
yeah. Can I clarify something too before you go on? And what I was saying about Christianity, I'm talking about the larger.
I know. Oh, yeah, that's clear.
I'm talking about the macro.
That's clear.
Quote, Christianity, end quote.
No, that's clear.
Of the world.
No, because we're going to definitely talk about that very soon.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. I think that this is heresy. I think that when Mom and I were talking about this earlier, I don't know if Dad and I were part of this conversation, but anyway, when there's a discussion about the third of the stars falling, I can see where it's like a third of the divine council, right? But if humanity were to join the divine council, it's not to say that all the other, every single Elohim out there that he created was an evil being. It doesn't make sense. And so, and he did portion the nations out to other Elohim. And so to have very similar ideas out there for a society that was thousands of miles away, in order to have some sense of something to hold on to, I think that is potential. I think there's reason behind that.
That's why I said the human intellect combined with possible the Elohim.
Yeah, I heard that before. Yeah, yeah, but I heard what you said with that.
I totally agree with that. Yeah.
And so I think it's remarkable how very, very similar wording is. And so yeah, and it does fail to an extent, right? But it does provide a way for people to adhere to in anticipation. Like, is it Paul that says like it's just like the Torah was made in order to like pay? There's something like that in it's like the Torah was made in order like in anticipation or to bind or to find sin or something like that. And I think it's a very similar idea when you're looking at other cultures that have very similar ways of thinking. I'm just blown away by the stark similarity there.
Now, can I throw in an example? We talked about this when we were going through the Bible reading, but when we went to the temple in the north and walked through that area that was so unfriendly, and there were idols in there, ancient idols, and they had idols there that were modeled after. It was really weird because we looked at them and what we were looking at were like descriptions of what Ezekiel had seen, like how he described like seraphim, and just covered, like with eyes and different faces, and it was just amazing. And they were that similar, so I do believe that there were like Elohim influence because they were about as close as you could get to some of the biblical descriptions as you could come.
Wow.
Hold on, I'm trying to think I'm trying something really fast.
And it was not friendly.
No.
The people were, but the atmosphere was not friendly. It was like death out.
Wow.
Yeah, it was not.
I'm trying to look for an example where they have like many faces. I'm going to say many faces.
Yeah, whatever it was, they didn't want to wear.
Yeah.
Okay, there we go.
I asked George, did you feel that?
Oh, of course I can't find it now. But yeah, like for example, the way that it would look would be like you would have like a humanoid being, and it would be like a very tall head, and there would be 4 faces on all sides, and then there would be 4 faces on the next one up, and it would be like 4 faces on the next one up, and 4 faces, and it would have many arms, and it was a very, very interesting, and there was like some that had eyes and like many skulls, and it was a very interesting image. Yeah, similar. This is like the Indian version, but I thought it was more of the Chinese version. But this is like an Indian version.
That was the Indian version.
This is the Indian version. But there
were a couple particularly in that room that didn't have the layered head, but there were just a head with 4 faces, and there would be like eyes. They had eyes everywhere around, and it was strange,
yeah.
It was really cool to.
There was one too that was covered with skulls.
Yeah, that one that was drinking the blood of the enemy.
Yeah, that was creepy.
This is one that's very, very similar. You can see it though. Very similar.
Oh yeah.
Another one.
And then you have like.
I particularly remember the one that had the animal head.
But what
that's
we
the
do.
This looked like the description is there, but it had the animal head.
This is the one with the 1,000 arms.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it looked like that.
4 heads and 1,000 arms.
Yeah. And oh yes, this is the Tower one. Thank goodness I found it. Like this.
Yeah.
Like the Tower of Heads, and then you have the arms. Yep. Very, very interesting stuff. Oh yeah. Yeah, here's like the full thing. That's the full idol. But anyway, yeah, but you guys get the idea of what we're talking. Oh yeah, here's one with like many multiple little heads.
Yeah.
You gotta have with many little heads.
And then sometimes that's a Buddha.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Ooh.
Yep. Yes, it is. But yeah, it's really cool stuff. Like when you, oh yeah, and this is the one with skulls.
Yeah. Remind folks that might be joining us that this is the topic is the scripture in light of surrounding cultures. So I don't think that we're like going off into.
I mean, there's a disclaimer.
Yeah. Okay, good.
There's already a disclaimer. It says if you don't want your face to get challenged a little bit, I mean, don't watch it. This is another representation. This is a female one. But you can see like it just goes up, 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 up. Yeah.
What do they call them?
And then you have like the heads over there.
They call those bodhisattvas, don't they?
Yes. The bodhisattvas are the ones that are humans that choose to become human again to show others the path to enlightenment. So you have a Buddha, which is someone who has attained enlightenment and has entered the Pure Land, which is like their version of a heavenly domain. And then you have the...
Aren't they typically female?
No, not always. Not always.
The ones I noticed were always female.
Not always, because you also have some female Buddhas, like Guan Yin is a female, and that is like a god. That's like yes, they can't. They're very often female, but they're not always. And bodhisattvas they are the ones who have attained enlightenment, but who choose to go back to the earthly realm in order to bring others toward that same path toward light. So that's the conception. No, you're right. Most of them are women.
Yeah. I got the impression that
bodhisattvas only women?
Female.
I thought they were male.
That's what.
Oh, maybe they are and kind of look like female.
No, they can be. Oh no, Guan Yin is a bodhisattva. So like, remember I said there's Guan Yin. I thought she was a Buddha. No, she's a bodhisattva.
Bodhisattva.
Yeah. So okay. Yeah. Yeah. Is bodhisattva men? Yeah. No, it says in Buddhism a bodhisattva is any person who is on the path toward Buddhahood.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah. Is on the path to attaining complete Buddhahood and is helping others on that path. So there are enlightened beings who have put off entering paradise in order. Yeah, they have put off entering paradise in order to lead others. So anyway, okay. So controversy just begins. So
once more.
Here we go. So that's it's interesting. I love how we, like, in our first meeting, like, we looked at, like, other cultures, like Egypt's creation story, and like, in Taoism is different. Taoism, their version of existence is there's, like, a balance between everything. So there's always one side and another, and no side is good necessarily, but they can have influences. And that's where you get the yin and the yang from. And the yin would be like one aspect of everything, and then you have the yang, which is the other aspect of everything, and they balance each other. An example is male and female. And another one is hot, cold, white, black. But but there is no defined good and evil. And because everything is seen as having a positive attribute, so there's always like, but it's a constant game of balance, which is why Chinese medicine goes into the idea of having balance within the self. So when, in Chinese medicine, like if you feel a certain type of way, you might have like feel ill. They'll be like, oh, you need more water. Like, but when they say water, it's more like you need the element water. But if you feel the opposite way, they're like, oh, you need fire. And that's how they before, like, it's like either you do this or you do that, and it maintains balance within the self. And that's the Taoist way and the traditional Chinese way of handling things. Anyway, that's talk about radicals. Anyway, so now let's go ahead and have some fun. Last week we talked about Gnosticism. And so this week I took off of work, and so I had more time to look at stuff, and that was an interesting experience. So I'm looking forward to presenting this. Now, once again, I'm repeating. A lot of what was said in the Old Testament had to do with refuting the surrounding cultures. It's a very similar idea when it comes to certain New Testament concepts. Do any of you recall any place in the Bible, especially the New Testament, where it has to be in the New Testament, where there's a mention of an emphasis that Christ was raised in bodily form? Can anyone come up with any place where that was a major argument, where was Christ being raised in bodily form?
You mean argument in the Bible? Is that what you're saying?
Yes. He's saying there is no other way. He rose in a body.
Right. I don't remember of any place in the scriptures where it just states that. It doesn't argue about it.
Let's go to 1 John 4.
Is that where he says that anyone would be able to come in the flesh?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the one. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Mm-hmm. So let's go ahead, 1 John chapter 4. Dear friends, do not believe everyone who claims to speak by the Spirit. You must test them to see if the Spirit they have comes from God. For there are many false prophets in the world. This is how we know if they have the Spirit of God. If a person claiming to be a prophet acknowledges that Jesus Christ came in a real body, that person has the Spirit of God. But if someone claims to be a prophet and does not acknowledge the truth about Jesus, that person is not from God. Such a person has the spirit of the Antichrist, which you heard is coming into the world, and indeed is already here. So, okay. So that's just one example. There are other references, but this section here is like basically saying if anybody says that Christ did not, that Christ not coming, wait a second. What gospel account is it where Thomas, doubting Thomas, touches Christ's body?
It's John.
It is John. And so, see where I hope we're starting to get an idea of where we're going with this one. What was a predominant Gnostic belief?
The body's evil. And you're gonna when you die, you're gonna become a spirit, bodiless.
Yes. And was Christ an actual human according to Gnostic beliefs?
No.
No. And this was the big debate there was a lot of setting the record straight in terms of what the epistles were saying. Paul mentions things like this. But in this section here in 1 John 4, it's like absolutely clear cut. There are no ands, ifs, or buts about this. That Christ came in a body. John's gospel account came into. But you know what's really funny today is that a lot of people who study Gnosticism actually think that John's gospel is Gnostic. Which is very ironic. So anyway. Now, I want to delve into something funny. So Wikipedia is a great source when you are looking at something obscure. Because like how often will people go into very obscure areas of Wikipedia to just change something into something it shouldn't be? So this is really cool. I'm getting it set up so that before I share the screen this time, just so that way I know it's there. There we go. All right, so this is before the creed was formed. So we're looking at diversity in early Christian theology. Now, adoptionism. It's one of the ways that that I would say that the predominance of Christians would say is heretical, which is take it or leave it. But I do believe this is wrong here. An early form of adoptionism, the doctrine that Jesus became the Son of God by adoption, held that Jesus was born human only, and that he became divine by adoption and his baptism, being chosen because of his sinless devotion to the will of God. And so, yeah, it's really interesting that you got the, this is one of the ways, one of the thoughts is that Christ was completely human, but became divine. You have Arianism, which is born in Libya. The Son of God was not eternal, but created by the Father as an instrument for creating the world, and therefore not God by nature, different from other creatures in being the one a direct creation of God. Docetism, which is the belief that Jesus' physical body was an illusion. You have the Ebionites, who they emphasize the binding character of the Mosaic Law and believe Jesus was the human son of Mary. They seem to have been ascetics and were said to have rejected Paul's epistles and to have used only one gospel. We're going back to Gnosticism and this one. Montanism. Montanus was very, very charismatic. He was similar. Yeah, there we go. Other details similar found in modern Pentecostalism. But his thing is not Pentecostalism at all. His thing was now this is the thing. A lot of the stuff that has to do with this guy was written by those who rejected him. So take it or leave it. But you can take it with a grain of salt. But basically, it was they had very ritualized ways of approaching things. And that when it came to like there's a place, there's like a mountain. Oh, the kingdom of God. They thought the kingdom of God was an actual literal place on the planet. And so they actually like migrated, and so it was interesting that he's like, that place over there is the kingdom of God. Now, I'm turning this off for now because we're going into Gnosticism, and there's another one that's very, very close to it. It's called, I forget, Marcionism or Marcionism. Very, very close. Now, because we gotta have a little bit of a preface. So, Plato, some Greek guy.
Imagine Plato being involved.
What do we know about Plato's cosmology? Anyone know anything about Plato's cosmology?
Didn't he believe that the sun moved around the earth?
No, cosmology. That means like the creation of creation of everything.
Oh, okay, creation. Okay.
Yeah, cosmos. Yeah, that
The
it does mean that.
cosmos
But
is because Aristotle believed that the sun moved around the earth.
I'm talking about creation itself
Okay.
and where humanity's role is. Ooh. So we often talk about Plato's beliefs being involved in the church, but what are they? So this is going to be interesting. Oh, I love it.
Plato believed in the immortality of spirit, didn't he?
He did.
Yeah.
And but so much more. Dad was with me when I just began like really dabbling into it, and we were having a blast. I think I was there for like 3 hours, and we were just diving in. And then it's like, so that was like back on Monday or something like that. And here we are. It's Friday, and imagine how much more digging I've done. So let's talk about Plato's cosmology. Now, actually, no. What we're going to do is we're going to go to another philosopher who took on a very, very similar cosmology. Okay, cosmology is the idea of the creation of all things. So that's why you have cosmos in there. So you have the creation of all things and the order of all things, like where things line up. This guy was a Jew from, not Plato, but this guy we're about to talk about, was a Jew from Alexandria, which is known for having a large, very Hellenized Greek form of course it's Hellenized, anyway, a very redundancy, department of redundancy. Anyway, the very Hellenized concept of Judaism, a lot of Plato's ideas entered. And a lot of them had some really interesting points, but I can't wait to go on this journey with you guys. So his name was Philo, Philo. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of this guy besides that, because Dad and I were. What have you known about him before today?
Not much. I just know he was from Alexandria.
That's it?
He was a philosopher.
But he basically founded a lot of the conceptions that we modern Christians have today. So when you think of like what modern day Christianity conceived of in terms of our version of the cosmology, yeah, he pretty much was one of the big spearheads of that. He was born about 15 years before Christ, and he died after Christ. Obviously, I mean, a lot of people did, so it's interesting that his theology was being solidified around the time of Christ, like starting to teach. And so, isn't it interesting? It's almost like an anti-Christ. Anyway, we just read stuff. What? This is going. So let's be very clear about this. The Antichrist, as far as what we are looking at, is not a person per se. It is the opposite take or a version of a gospel that it's almost like you have two trees that you can choose from. You have the tree of life as well as the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. That's why last week's thing was called the tree of Gnosticism. Okay, so it's like you have two trees here. You have the tree of Christ, and then you have another tree that seems very appealing, and is very, and that's why in the New Testament you have them saying, "Be very careful of people who say things," and it sounds very good to the ears. So this is where we're getting really. Ooh, this is good. I'm really looking at statements in the New Testament differently now. I can't wait to see your guys' reaction to this. So, Philo, let's go ahead. Okay, so remember, Philo borrowed heavily from Plato. Okay, he basically adopted the predominance of Plato's cosmology, although from a Jewish perspective. Now, let's dive in. Let me bring up a whiteboard. I think that would actually be better here to explain how the cosmology worked. So we got, let me do this. It'll be easier. Okay. So hopefully I can do this. And hopefully it's good enough. Okay. Okay. So. Oh, oh, wow. That was bad. Oh, my goodness. I can't do that. Okay. Okay. Oh. Okay. Okay. Okay, we're done. Okay. Okay. We got God with a capital G. Okay? So, that's not me. No, I'm not. No. We're not bringing New Age concepts into this. Anyway, so God with a capital G. Okay, so this is Philo's understanding as well as Plato's. You got God with a capital G. He is so out there that this, it's like this thing is so far, it's so distant, so impersonal, that it is so, there is no way for humanity ever to be in this capital G God's presence, okay? Remember, this is not what the Bible says. This is Philo's and Plato's cosmology. Now, so it's like other. This version of God is other. Then you have something else. I'm going, man. Oh, no, yellow is never a good one to use.
No.
Okay, you have this thing called the demiurge. So you got God with a capital G creates. Now, and this God here, the God with the capital G, is absolutely perfect. Perfect. Okay, no problems. Perfect. With an A+. Okay. So, yeah, perfect. Perfection, right? And so you had this God created the demiurge. The demiurge is a being that is lesser than God. So it is like it's a God, but it's lesser than capital G God. So it is basically like they're saying this is like less than God with the capital G, but God. Okay, less than God, but is a God. Like is a God. Created something. This thing created Earth and everything around us. So now the demiurge. So in this creation of Earth, not. Oh wait, no, this is bad. Less than perfect. It's almost like a C-. Okay, so less than perfect, and like the grade that you would give something like this would be like a C-. Okay, so this demiurge is more like a B, I guess you could say, if we're talking about grades. So the A+, this God, and then you have the B, the demiurge, and then Earth is like a C-, just barely passing. And humanity is the creation of the demiurge. Now, one thing about God that you have to understand is God is filled with light, a lot of light, has tons of light, light. Okay, so everything that comes from the God, capital G God, is light. So the demiurge has some light, okay? There is some light, but not all light. And then you have, like, Earth has, like, little bits of light. And these little bits of light are called sparks. Okay, so you got little sparks. Now, am I making sense so far to everyone?
Yeah.
Okay, so I really wanted to make sure I did this very, very slowly because it is a mind bender. Now, that means that every person that has ever been created has a godly spark within them. They are not capital G God. They're closer to the demiurge in nature, but there is a bit of heavenly spark. However, all humans themselves, the physical flesh, dies. And because of that, the flesh is evil, 100%. So your body is considered, from the moment you are born until the time that you die, you are evil. However, you do have that heavenly spark somewhere within you. And so when you die, if you have found the way that or if you have focused on that heavenly spark throughout your life, you die, your spark will go up past the demiurge, through the layers of heavens, back to God, and your spark will become one with God. Yeah, you, basically. Yeah, right. Yeah, you. So you become part of capital G, God. Now, this place is not your home. So so this is not home. This place is home, where all heavenly light returns eventually. Now, am I clear?
Sounds like Scientology.
With very similar themes and stuff like that, right? Very, very similar. Now, okay, so we got the concept. You got capital G God, demiurge, and earth, and humanity, the evilness. Okay. Now, that is really this is going to be fun. Now, okay, so I stopped sharing, right? I think I'm back to my normal self. Good. All right, let's go back. Let me just make sure everything's set up. Yay, we are back. Okay. Philo says that the demiurge is the angel of the Lord. This is where you have the concept of the angel of the Lord taking on a secondary nature to capital G God. So we talked ad nauseum about the concept of the angel of the Lord being God himself. Philo says that yes and no, that the angel of the Lord is secondary, that God created the angel of the Lord as a secondary being to enact everything. The God of the Old Testament is seen as the work of the demiurge. And so, like creation, Genesis 1, all of that. Now, you have the capital G God in existence, but it's more like the interaction that humanity has with God is through the demiurge. Now, remember, the demiurge is secondary to God, not God himself. A God, and like the top of gods, but like not the God. No. Then we had Christianity come around. The Gnostic belief was already formulated with Philo. Now, you have to understand about Gnostics, it's just like with regular Christianity, there's a lot of variance in belief. There were some versions of Gnosticism that thought that the demiurge was evil, because it was through evil that evil things were created. Similar to like how when Pharisees said it's because of the demons that Christ can cast, he is the king of demons, that he can cast them out. And so there's the very the concept was already there. Now, when Christianity came along, though, the predominance of Gnostic belief in Christianity. Okay, you have like a smaller portion that believed that the demiurge was evil. I mean, it was a significant amount, but like a lesser so. But you have it's like kind of Shiite and Sunni Muslims. It's like you have like a very significant portion of one, but it's not as big as the other one. So it's similar, like with Gnosticism. Now, the Gnostics, by and large, thought that the demiurge was secondary, that capital G God created the demiurge, and that Christ was the demiurge. And that when Christ was teaching, he had taken on human form, but could not don a true human body because the human body was evil. And in order for the demiurge light to return and show the way for all the other sparks to follow the way, he could not don a physical body. Now, so you have so this is getting a little bit complex. So remember, it was believed that when you die, if you had followed the way, in that sense, your heavenly spark, your home is not here, it's above. It's in another realm. And so we have, and so it travels up so it can be one with God. So they took a lot of the concepts that were presented in the gospel accounts and said, see, this is evidence of that. But they were not looking at, and they kind of like picked and choose what they could use in terms of like where, like for example, like the section where it talks about like heaven and earth coming together, that type of idea, totally disregarded. Similarly to how that's very commonly totally disregarded today. But and it's very interesting too that little phrase, "they have gone home," is a very common phrase that we have today. Anyway, okay. And then think about it though. How much of modern Christianity do you know thinks that when you die, there's like a bit of a godly spirit within you that will transcend the heavens and will be one with God forever up there, never down here, because this place is evil because of original sin, and humanity in and of itself is evil. But that's okay. We recognize that, we can. You understand I'm being sarcastic there, right? But we recognize that once we die, our souls won't die. Like our souls are this inanimate thing that will join and transcend the heavens to be one with God, and it's there. Now, on that plane, that is our home. And that is so not biblical. It's so very much not biblical. Yeah, that's another thing too about the serpent thing. You shall not surely die. That was a good one. Okay, that's a very good point there, Mom. Thank you. Anyway. Oh, that makes it all the cooler that we titled last week The Tree of Gnosticism. Anyway. Okay, so turn to John 1. Not 1 John, the Gospel of John. Remember, John's Gospel was the last one written. In the beginning. Oh, I forgot this one. Forgot this. Put it away. We'll come back. Logos.
Little ADD here.
Let's talk about like the translation of certain words here. Okay, so the word for utterance in Greek, like an utterance, like a word, like something that is actually spoken, is rhema. It's not logos. So if we have R-H-E-M-A, rhema. I think that's how it's spelled. I might be wrong, but it's R-H-E-M-A. That is the translation in the Hebrew Bible into the Septuagint is rhema, like an utterance that God said. Now, we get this thing called the Logos. Yeah, the demiurge was also called the Logos, and the Logos is it's where we get the word logic from. So remember the ruach, which is the Hebrew word for spirit or breath or wind or that thing, was translated into pneuma, P-N-E-U-M-A, like pneumatic, or like the breath of something, pneuma, the lungs. And you got the ruach became pneuma. The nefesh became the suke, which is the suke, which is the way of thinking, like the psyche. Like we got that from the biblical concept of nefesh. And then we also have this word here, the word that God spoke is rhema. Although there are certain times when it's more like his reasoning or his wisdom was equated to the logos of Plato. And because Plato believed in 3 ways of discourse. One of them was logical. Like you can play to people's emotions, you can play to people's logic, and there's another one. But he was one of the first great orators. The one who could it said like, how can you make an effective public speech? And so you have these different ways of, and so you have these different I don't know how to say, but the logos was one of the ethos, ethics. Is another one. You appeal to someone's emotional standards, and so that's the concept with that. So you got the logos. Now Philo took the concept of the logos and said, yes, every time you have godly wisdom, that is equated to logos. Wait a second, isn't God personified as Lady Wisdom in certain So he's taking concepts that were very well founded in the Old Testament, and we're just Greekifying them, Hellenizing them. Now, I'm going to wait a moment, and then we'll go ahead and have our. I'm going to wait just a moment before we have our break, but we'll just because I did want the full effect of this one to actually take place. So I'll be right. Okay, now.
You didn't fool me. I put a marker in there.
Now we will look at going. Now remember what Philo said, and what the Gnostic Christians said, that God, capital G God, created all, and then created the logos, and then the logos created Earth, but Earth was like imperfect to the point of being evil. But there's a heavenly spark in everybody that will travel home one day should they find the light that will actually bring them back home. And so this is the Gnostic concept. I wonder what John has to say about this. So let's take a look at John 1. In the beginning was the Logos. It already existed. The Logos was with God, and the Logos was God. He existed in the beginning with God. God created everything through him, and nothing was created except through him. The Logos gave life to everything that was created, and his life brought light to everyone. Remember how some believed that the Logos was evil. But he's saying the Logos gave light to everyone. The light shines in the darkness. And the darkness can never extinguish it or comprehend it, depending on what you got. So, God sent a man, John the Baptist, to tell about the light, so that everyone might believe because of his testimony. John himself was not the light. Oh. He was simply a witness to tell about the light. The one who is the true light, who gives light to everyone, was coming into the world. He came into the very world he created, but the world didn't recognize him. He came to his own people, and even they rejected him. But to all who believed him and accepted him, he gave the right to become children of God. They are reborn, not with a physical birth, resulting from human passion or plan, but a birth that comes from God. So the Logos became human and made his home among us. He was full of unfailing love and faithfulness. Exodus like recollections of Exodus, unfailing love and faithfulness. And we have seen his glory, the glory of the Father's one and only Son. Well, we'll talk about the meaning of the one and only Son later. But John testified about him when he shouted to the crowds, "This is the one I was talking about when I said, 'Someone is coming after me who is far greater than I am, for he existed long before me.' From his abundance, we have all received one gracious blessing after another. For the law was given through Moses, but God's unfailing love and faithfulness," Exodus again, "came through Jesus Christ. No one has ever seen God, but the unique one, who is himself God." Like, putting it in there, the unique one, who is God, is near to the Father's heart. He has revealed, remember, like a tentfold, like it's almost like you remove the tentfold. Like, he has revealed God to us. I have never read John that way before. I personally feel as if this is a very, very clear-cut argument against Gnostic beliefs. And which were already solidifying at that time. And it's funny, it's very ironic, that Gnostics believe that John was a Gnostic. Like, I think it's very, very, very different. But anyway.
Believed it or claimed it.
Or claimed it for themselves, yeah. They claimed it for themselves, yep. And and what's the next story we have here? This was John's testimony when the Jewish leaders sent priests and temple assistants from Jerusalem to ask John, "Who are you?" He came right out and said, "I'm not the Messiah." "Well, then who are you? Are you Elijah?" "No." "Are you the prophet we're expecting?" "No." "Then who are you? We need an answer for those who sent us. What do you have to say about yourself?" John replied in the words of the prophet Isaiah, "I am a voice." Oh, we're talking about voices way back when. Shouting in the... Wait a second. Do we know of any other voice shouting in the wilderness? Lady Wisdom in Proverbs was walking throughout the streets and calling, saying, "Come to me." And but here it's different with Isaiah saying, like, make the way straight for the Lord. But we just spent the entire first section of this chapter talking about the Logos, which is equated to God's wisdom. And it's like, and he said, I'm a voice, just a voice, shouting in the wilderness, clear the way for the Lord's coming." Then the Pharisees who had been sent asked him, "If you aren't the Messiah or Elijah or the prophet, what right do you have to baptize?" John told them, "I baptize with water, but right here in the crowd is someone you do not recognize. Though his ministry follows mine, I'm not even worthy to be a slave and untie the straps of his sandal." This encounter took place in Bethany, an area east of the Jordan River where John was baptizing. And then, oh, wait a second. Now we have Jesus being declared the Lamb of God. Okay. So the next day when John saw Jesus coming toward him, he said, "Look, the Lamb of God who takes away the sin of the world. He is the one I was talking about when I said, 'A man is coming after me who is far greater than I am, for he exists long before me.' I did not recognize him as the Messiah, but I have been baptizing with water so that he might be revealed to Israel." Then John testified, "I saw the Holy Spirit descending like a dove from heaven and resting upon him. I didn't know he was the one, but when God sent me to baptize with water, he told me, 'The one on whom you see the Spirit descend and rest is the one who will baptize with the Holy Spirit.' I saw this happen to Jesus, so I testify that he is the chosen one of God." Okay. Then you have all this, so all these, what is so what is, if you have a red text saying, what is Christ's first words in this chapter?
What do you see?
What do you seek? And what are you looking for? What are you searching? And, okay. So what's the next thing he said?
Come and see.
Come and see. what was a major thing that we were talking about, a major verb in Hebrew that we were talking about in the Old Testament? What was John? John said, I am not the Messiah, I am just the voice. And Christ coming over to him and saying, no, so listen to the voice, right? And then you have Christ who says, come and see. And so this is this is really, really interesting stuff here. So we got okay. So we have listening to the voice, and we also have seeing things with your eyes. So what?
Listen, Shema.
Yeah, Shema. Exactly. And so here we go. And you have come, follow me. And then later on, it says like I could. And Jesus says in verse 48, I could see you under the fig tree before Philip found you. And then it's and then he says in 50, you will see greater things than this. I tell you the truth, you will all see heaven open and the angels of God going up and down on the Son of Man, the one who is the stairway between heaven and earth. And so this is so there are basic, so there's some places with the Gnostic beliefs that do line up here, but John is quite real. You can tell, just like with Noah and Gilgamesh, you have the concept of like very similar stories, very similar statements, but that there are very clear-cut differences. And you have the Logos has always been versus having been created. And then when you go to the end of John, oh, you have like 7 I am statements in John. You have 7 signs in John, 7 miraculous signs. I wonder if 7's an important. Wait a second. What's one of the major numbers in Revelation? That's a very interesting thought. So you got 7 seals and 7 trumpets and 7 churches and 7. Anyway,
so what are you getting at?
Oh, wait a second. Chapter 21. Wait. How many disciples did he appear to? Are you counting?
After his death, you mean?
In chapter 21, how many disciples does he appear to?
10?
7.
7.
And there's 7s all over this book. And so, and how many times does he ask Peter?
Okay. Yeah.
It's 7, isn't it?
That is 7.
Mm-hmm. And chapter 21, verse 7. Now, you've got to understand something. The verses of the New Testament were decided later, but I think it is interesting. I don't know if it was something that had to do with the people who formed the New Testament later, who put it together, who made chapters. But isn't it interesting that in chapter 21, verse 7, something very important happens? Okay, can someone read chapter 21, verse 7?
Oh.
Can someone read it?
Therefore, that disciple whom Jesus loved, Peter, it's the Lord. Now, when Simon Peter heard that it was the Lord, he put on his outer garment.
What?
His outer garment.
His what? What garment? Does anyone have another translation?
Is it a tunic?
It's a tunic.
Wait a minute, a tunic's an undergarment.
But wait a second, what did he do? He jumped into the water.
Water, yeah.
So he put on his tunic. Why Why? Just think about it. Just think about it for 2 seconds here. Why does it matter what clothes he's wearing? Like, it could have just as easily said he jumped into the water and ran to Jesus. Why is there a mention of a tunic being placed on his body? Like, there's a
Wait a second. It doesn't make sense, though. He put on his outer garment.
Oh, yeah.
Why would you put on extra clothes to plunge into the water?
Okay, you made a good point. Yeah, I realized, yeah. Why, indeed? Are we, like, am I making sense here? Like, do you know why it's a tunic? Really? What is the tunic? What is the tunic?
You talking about the the priestly thing?
Exactly. Thank you.
I wasn't sure where you were going. It's like, where are you going?
You didn't know that. Is that it?
I was just waiting to see where you were going there.
But it's the priestly garment. Why would we even mention what type of clothes that he put on? Like you know that the Bible isn't that big on detail in terms of like what hair color they had, which is very common in our modern books. But yet it specifically made the mention of him putting on a priestly type of garment, and that's anyway. So I still don't know the reason why it's 153. I don't know if there's a gematria link to there, but there is something weird about the 153 fish. It's just interesting to me.
Yeah, it's weird they would mention it.
Yeah, there's just something about it. I know there's something behind that. But I just don't know. but it's always bugged me because I don't know what that means. But anyway, I do know that No, I don't. And he asked Peter 3 questions. Wait a second. What is the last thing Christ told Peter to do?
Feed my sheep.
Yeah. What did the priests do? Like they made things edified. They edified things for the people. They made things more accessible. And when Christ he put him into a priestly role. And so yeah. And and it's interesting. I tell you the truth, when you were younger, were able to do as you liked, you dressed yourself and went wherever you wanted to go. But when you are old, you will stretch out your hands, and others will dress you and take you where you don't want to go. There's a lot of inference here. A lot of people say, oh yeah, this is like the type of like idea of like what type of death he was going to have. That's what the Bible says. I think there's a nuance here. What did Paul talk about in Romans 12? I'll just say, like, when we are to be living sacrifices, we present ourselves, and then Christ directs us wherever we go. And what did Christ just like? He put on this earth, and then he said, "Now feed my sheep," and now it's his direction at that point. And now Peter's going to go places he didn't want to go before. And he had just like denied him and all that stuff. And now it's like there's like it's really, really crazy stuff happening here. Anyway, so did it do? No. Chapter 20, verse 24. Okay. One of the 12 disciples, Thomas, nicknamed the twin, was not with the others when Jesus came. They told him, "We have seen the Lord." But he replied, "I won't believe it unless I see the nail wounds in his hands, put my fingers into them, place my hand into the wounds in his side." 8 days later, the disciples were together again, and this time Thomas was with them. The doors were locked, but suddenly, as before, Jesus was standing among them. "Peace be with you." No, it's with you. No, sorry. Peace be with you, he said. Then he said to Thomas, put your finger here and look at my hand. Put your hand into the wound in my side. Don't be faithless any longer. Believe. My Lord and my God. Thomas exclaimed. Then Jesus told him, you believe because you have seen me. Blessed are those who believe without seeing me. And so this is, in my opinion, there's no doubt that this is anti-Gnostic literature. That this is like based on, because like what was one of the, oh, and I did look it up, and I was right originally. Thomas is not originally part of the Gnostic tradition, but became part of it. I'm talking about the Gospel of Thomas, right? And because it was found with the other Gnostic literature, they just kind of adopted it as their own. And the thing is, like when you're looking at stuff like this, there's no doubt to me that John was being very specific with the way things were being worded. And another thing too had to do with I love the imagery that you have with all the different signs. Every sign has a purpose. For example, the water turning into wine at the very end of the wedding is like that. The best is yet to come type of a thing. It's like you would think that things would deteriorate over time, but yet things are being renewed and things just utterly transform. There's a lot of talk of being reborn in John.
Wait, chapter 3 is really anti-Gnostic.
What? No. Remember, the Gospel of John is a Gnostic Gospel.
Yeah, but it's interesting. But just looking at it here, it's interesting because it brings out the Gnostic beliefs and then basically 1-2 punches it.
Exemplify, please. Go for it.
Well, when he's talking here about unless one is born of water and the Spirit, he cannot enter the kingdom of God. That which is born of the flesh is flesh, and that which is born of the Spirit is spirit. Well, you could argue that, yeah, well, the Gnostics had that, believing that flesh is flesh and Christ was spirit, so he probably wasn't flesh. You could kind of argue that, but over on the other side where he talks about no, he says, if I told you earthly things and you do not believe, how will you believe if I tell you heavenly things? No one has ascended to heaven, but he who came down from heaven, that's the Son of Man.
Wait, I thought that all sparks of light.
Exactly. But then you go down and it talks about, in 19, and this is the condemnation, that the light has come into the world, and men love darkness rather than light because their deeds were evil. But everyone practicing evil hates the light. But he was saying, I'm the light, not this bunch of little sparks running around.
Oh, and not to mention when he says that I am the light, remember, it was capital G God that was light.
Right.
The Logos was not. Had light, but wasn't light. And then here's Christ saying, no, I'm light. And, well, actually, it was John saying that. Because John was actually, there's no doubt to me that this is a very anti-Gnostic gospel, which is so interesting that it's included in their collection. They also say that Paul was Gnostic, which is very interesting to me. So, anyway,
nobody was any less Gnostic than Paul.
Yeah, because especially in 2 Corinthians and Colossians was a big one, where and a tad bit of Titus. There's a section in there that are because I was looking at all of this last night, right? And I remember these ones. What? Go ahead.
But the philosophy that no lie is harder to fight and disprove than one that aligns itself with the truth.
Yeah, that's very true. But that's the whole thing, isn't it? It's similar to the first deception. It's like slight twists of truth. Yep, you got it. Which is why I think John was basically saying that some of these Gnostic beliefs are valid. but definitely not all of them. Just like, and going back to Noah again, like Noah and Gilgamesh. Or you have like humanity, like God created like the earth and stuff like that, and created humans out of dust, not mud, but dust. And it's really, but not to be slaves, but to rule. And the whole, a lot of different really cool stuff. All right. Does anyone have anything they wanted to say? Yes? Yes? Oh, I guess not.
Can I get you some water, Dad?
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Okay. Hold on. See a few minutes.
Make sure you hydrate. So, I think personally, we were talking before about how John is different in terms of like presentation. I'm just going to reiterate is that John, there's a lot of plays with the number 7 in John. And like in 3. 3 is a pretty major factor. Like how many times did Christ say, "You love me"? And there's the what was the other one? There was another one. Oh yeah. Think of the very first sentence. In the beginning was the Logos, and the Logos was with God, and the Logos was God. That's like a pairing of 3 statements, right? That's what I'm saying. It's everywhere in there. It's just, but like it's in ways. Even if you read it in English, they'll start popping out to you. And and I think that but the purpose of Christ here, like the essential message of the gospel is very much the same. I just love the little packs of punches that come with the anti-Gnostic beliefs here. I still want to know what 153 means, though. Go ahead.
But are we jumping around in the book?
Oh, we're pretty much done.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Because when we go here to the prayer,
I'm sorry. Oh, totally.
Yeah, when he
so
talks
sorry about that. Yes, I want to talk about 14, 16, and 17. Go ahead.
Okay, go ahead.
So please. Go for it.
When he talked about being one with God, God the Father, and earlier when he said, nobody has seen the Father but the Son, and I've come to reveal the Father. Well, the Gnostics could argue that point, but they couldn't argue the point when Jesus said, okay, you and me and I and them.
Yep.
And then, like God the Father and Christ
you got it.
and us, all 3. Boom.
I can't believe I forgot to do 14, 16, and 17. Anyway, you're right, and I'm going to hammer that point home. Chapter 14, verse 6, where Jesus told them, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one can come to the Father except through me. If you had really known me, you would know who my Father is. Interesting wording there now. From now on, you do know him and have seen him. Yeah, that's very anti-Gnostic there. And have I been with you all this time, Philip, and yet you still don't know who I am? Oh yeah, remember it's seeing, listening, and knowing. Those are the 3 verbs. Don't you believe that I am in the Father, and the Father is in me? So instead, remember, the Gnostic concept is that God is in the demiurge, but the demiurge is not in God. And it's more like the top-down approach, and Christ is saying it's both. And anyway.
Yeah, and that they're taking on a third, which is us.
Exactly. You got it. And instead of the sparks would supersede the demiurge to go to the capital G God, and Christ says, no, it's all one. It's like all of it. It's like, it's a mix of it. Anyway. So, did you?
Yeah, I'm sorry, can I?
Please.
And this totally blows the Gnostics out of the water in that instead of little sparks of light in us, it's God's Spirit and God and Jesus themselves in us. And us and them, like Christ said. Them and us and them, and not these little sparks. It's God.
And then you have the concept of the Holy Spirit. I'm really, really doing my best not to even mention much of the Holy Spirit until we go to Acts. But like he has like there's like this whole thing that's in the one second. In chapter 15, there's a section about the grapevine, and so it's like, remember, in Hebrew thought, the grapevine is an actual tree, and we're being grafted onto that tree. There's like that life essence, and that is the spirit, the breath of life, the thing that it's God, right? But it's like the whole concept of life in and of itself is through this breath of life, and this breath of life is in us, and we are reborn from that. It's much more than a spark, by the way, and it's really fascinating to look at that imagery, knowing that it's like, okay, when Christ is saying like, I in you, you and me, and us in them. We were just talking about that with Mom. And how is that possible? It's through that binding breath of life, which is light itself, which is going back to some parts of Gnosticism have a point, but there's stark differences. I hope I'm making sense here, but anyway,
It's the lie allying the truth.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I'm just looking at now this is a big one. Chapter 16, verse 1 and 2. I have told you these things so that you won't abandon your faith. For you will be expelled from the synagogues, and the time is coming when those who kill you will think they're doing a holy service for God. Who was the first martyr? And who was he killed by?
Jews.
Mm-hmm. He was condemned by was it the Sanhedrin that actually condemned him? And so yeah, it was the High Council there, and remember, Paul himself said that he thought he was doing God a service. And so I think that makes a very strong statement for, I do have to say this because this has been on my mind a lot recently. I hope I'm being very clear. Gnosticism is very incorrect on many levels, okay? So we're just going to take the Gnostic beliefs and just push them to the side for now. We're just doing that, okay? Let's talk about something very clear-cut. Christianity, though, in the I guess you could say the worldwide church, in terms of worldliness church, churchianity church, the macro church, is seen as crazy. The Christianity, it's clear, Christ himself is saying that. They're saying that you're going to be turned against by people who think that their concept of God is the right one. And he's not talking. He is not talking about those from other faiths. And he is talking about, like, he was very direct, because the first martyr was killed by his brethren. And so it's a very similar concept in today's here and now. I do not think it is wise to be in alignment with a lot of what the established worldwide church is doing. And so I think this is an extremely important thing to remember. And so like when it's talking about the American church is doing this, or we're having these big things happening with all these things, I think that's very unwise. And I think, and the reason I'm saying that is because Christ is an extremely unpopular opinion. I don't think that a majority of the world. I don't think that it's a true statement to say that that there is a majority Christianity in this world. I forget what the numbers are, but there's supposedly like 1 billion Christians. That is far from true. I cannot say, like I was just talking with Linda like not too long ago about like there's a very you cannot always say one way or the other, but it is very much reliable to say the majority of Christianity is not what I want to be like, and that's a very, very important thing, and that's all I got on that one. So
Yes, Stephen was stoned by the council.
It was the
high priest.
It was the Sanhedrin.
The high priest, it was the council, and the high priest condemned him.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, later on, it says they laid their robes at Saul's feet.
Their what?
Their robes.
I wonder if that's actually tunic. I'm going to have to check that out later. But but their priestly attire, like the tunic, was not necessarily.
But the outer robe isn't the tunic.
Joseph wore a tunic, and that was more of like it was called
might be different
a tunic. We translated it as coat. It's a tunic, and so it's anyway. Oh, I have a picture. Hold on. There is a picture that in my Hebrew class, we got really interested in Joseph's tunic. And this is a picture of Canaanite priests and their attire in Egypt.
The tunic would be the skirty thing.
Yeah, but what are they wearing as their primary garment?
The skirty thing.
Yeah. Yep. And so they're and it's often translated as a tunic or a coat.
It's short. A
or a
tunic
robe.
is short.
Yeah. Right. But no, you're right. You're absolutely right. But like I think it's no. I'm not saying that what the Sanhedrin wore was tunics here, but we have already delved into how translations are messed with, especially like with Egypt when the staff was thrown before. I will never forget when I found that one out. When throwing the staff before Pharaoh and it becomes a sea monster and not a snake. I mean, come on. And because what was it when God said, "What's that in your hand?" "Oh, it's a staff." "Well, throw it down." "Okay," and he throws it down. That was a snake. But when he threw it in front of Pharaoh, it became a sea monster. Go ahead and take a look into your Bible to see what it became in your English translation. So, anyways, it never. Wait, was it? I think there was like one translation that translates it as some sort of like monstrous dragon or something like that. But it's like, yeah. So yeah, translations are messed with, and so just recently having found out that Joseph wore a tunic is a very big point because it's always translated as a coat. And so unless anyone has a different translation with them right now, I think it is a coat in pretty much every translation.
No, this is a tunic.
It is a tunic?
No, this is a tunic here.
That's a modern tunic.
That's a medieval tunic.
No. We're talking about the old one, like
priestly tunic.
Yes. It's called the katone. Hold on.
Because that's what they cast lots for. Jesus' tunic. It was his undergarment.
Right. Okay, so wait. Give me a moment, guys. I'm going to check something. What verse was that? No. Okay, wait. Okay, it was called the seamless robe. Okay, so in Hebrew that would have been clothing, right? And that was Matthew 27:35. Now, after I find this word, can you tell me the verse of where they stoned Stephen? Methia. Methia. That's what?
Where he.
Yes, when they cast their robes before at Saul's feet.
Okay. No, shoot. Here it is. 7x758.
It's the same word. See? It means garment.
Okay.
It's Hemethia. And what did they cast lots for?
Jesus' tunic.
Yep, Hemethia.
It was without seam.
Yeah, but why is it translated as tunic in some translations? What is this word? Let's say, okay, I want to show what word we're talking about here. Sorry, I'm not sharing the screen.
Amatia. That was never my
Hey, a long, flowing outer garment, a tunic. What is it in Acts?
But a tunic is not long and flowing.
What?
That's what I'm saying. Somebody's screwing this up.
Mom, you're messing up the concept of
Okay.
a modern day tunic, which is short, and the ancient tunic, which is long. It's just a word.
Okay.
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 It's a word. It is a word. We get the word. Okay, let me clarify something. Language changes a lot over time, and meanings change a lot over time. So just the word decimate no longer means to exterminate a tenth of. It means to destroy, right? To decimate. But you know the word December? Or decimal is based on the number 10. So if we were to say decimate someone, that originally meant killing 1/10
kill
of.
1 out of 10.
Yeah, they're killing 1/10.
I know what that decimate
So
means.
that changed drastically over time. Our modern conception of what a tunic is has changed drastically over time. I asked this question in class, actually. Because I'm like, what is the tunic? Like, what does it look like? And that's why I was showing that picture of what Egyptian perceptions of Canaanites were.
No. Here, ancient Greek tunic looked like that.
That's
It was
ancient
a short,
Greek
yeah.
tunic.
That's
This is
ancient.
the Canaanite tunic.
Okay.
This is the Canaanite tunic.
Okay, it's a little longer.
So in the Canaanite tunic, we only know what Canaanite tunics looked like through Egypt, because they basically drew pictures of everything. And so this is the Canaanite perception of the tunic. And they also had this, which was of another tribe. These were the people's tunics. These were not the priestly ones. The priestly ones were white, but these were tunics. I don't know if you can see them.
Aren't you loving me?
Yeah. But many different colors and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think those, and they were not like the long flowing outer garment, the tunic, because God told them when you are making offerings, you don't put stairways there, because when you're going up and down the stairs, people will be able to look up under your skirt.
Right. And look, you're right. And I think there was also a longer version, because it says a long flowing outer garment, or a tunic, in the Hemation. Let me search what that is.
The Hemation is long, and it's like flowing, like when a Greek woman wore a Hemation.
I'm wondering.
It was like flowing.
Wait a second. I have to wonder now. Okay, so there we go.
Yeah, that's a Hemation.
That looks like a toga.
Yeah, there are togas in Rome, and the Greek women, the Greek women wore. Yeah, see the Hemation on the women.
Okay, let's do an exercise, right? Can someone
Here's a tunic. Look up there, and
Here.
Yeah, that's a tunic.
Now, that's what I believe is the modern conception. But there is also, I'm thinking these types of things, though. Like, with the long garments like this.
That's Hamatia.
And, well, that's what this is. It's called, I'm going to go back to, where is this? Okay,
long,
coat.
Hamatia's long and flowing.
Joseph's tunic. Okay. Where is it? Where is it mentioned? Genesis 37:3.
Yeah, what's the Hebrew word for it?
Ketune, which is tunic. We get the word tunic from it. I want to know the Septuagint.
Oh, if they say Hamatia.
Uh-huh.
I mean, this is kind of exciting to me. If this turns out to be that tunic's been screwed up over time.
I don't see it. I might be missing the Greek word for tunic.
Yeah, because the priestly tunics were made with material that was not allowed to cause sweat. It was an undergarment. It was the inner garment. It was made from linen because they wouldn't sweat. And then they had they had robes over those. Please serve us for making them.
Oh, the Septuagint says the poikilos, which indicates many colors. Poikilos. Oh, there it is. Poikilon. Oh, it says tunic in Greek, like it is a romanization of the ketona. Like if anyone knows it, it's chitona is what it's saying. It's transliterating the word. I think it's funny. So it is. That is really funny. It is the dictionary. Chiton. Wait, we got the. Oh, we got that. So yeah, chiton, which is the word that's translated to mean Joseph's coat. Is this or this? It's just like it's really interesting. This would be like what they translated, but it's based on the Hebrew word. There. Look at that. And they're not wearing this. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, so these are monochitons. So what's the difference between?
The Hamatia, I think, is gathered. It's like it's folded and gathered. See at the top, it's like.
Okay, it was usually worn over a tunic, a chiton.
Yeah.
And or peplos, so it was made of heavier drape. Okay.
Yeah,
so
right.
the things that then why in the world do we have some translations saying that like Christ's tunic was divided or cut by lot?
No.
It wasn't divided.
No, they cast lots for it.
But that was a Himation.
They divided his clothing into 4 parts. But the tunic, they didn't because it was seamless.
But that word,
it was an expensive.
The word for tunic was Himation. And it wasn't chiton.
Oh, it wasn't?
No.
It wasn't tunic, it was Himation.
Look,
then it may be they've mistranslated it then. Because the Hemation would have been a longer flowing robe.
It was his garment. Yeah. It was his Hemesha.
So wow, that's a mistranslation then.
Or, you know, like how like in English we have couch and sofa.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if it's very similar.
But they're not the same piece of clothing.
They're not, but they're very, very, very similar. And it's like, why did we translate it as tunic when it's being talking about Christ's tunic? Going back to the point. Casting the staff before Pharaoh turning into a sea monster, not translated as a sea monster. So why aren't we using a specific word for Hemation and a specific word for chiton? But translation issues. Anyway.
I rest my case.
But if it is indeed wait a second.
What?
If it is indeed a tunic that was that people cast lots for, if it was indeed a tunic, that same word is the word that's used for what was cast at Saul's feet. So it's I think it's up in the air, really. I really do. Because it's like, why would we talk about a single piece of Hemation when it's okay? Wait, let's go. What
the Hemation was worn over a tunic, and you could wear a tunic without covering because it was just a lighter piece of clothing. The priests worked in tunics because they were cooler.
Mom?
What?
Do you not understand what I'm saying?
No, I'm losing the point.
The thing that the soldiers cast lots for,
yes,
was the Hemation.
Yes, I believe that's maybe it. Yeah.
So was that a tunic?
No.
But why is it translated as tunic?
I don't know.
Okay, that's what I'm getting at. That's what I'm getting at.
I don't know.
Okay, so
because the Hemation would have been worn over his tunic.
It's just really interesting here, looking at all this stuff. Anyway, so.
And it would make sense if they threw off their Hemation and laid them at Saul's feet.
Because that's the easier thing to lay down.
They would have then been wearing their tunic. Yeah.
But Christ's clothing was quite clearly stripped from him.
Yes.
So why is that word called Hemation?
Because it probably was his outer.
I think it was pretty naked.
I know, but I mean the one without seam that they cast lots for was an expensive piece of clothing.
Mm.
So they
cast lots for expensive piece of clothing, yeah. Which is probably why it was translated as a tunic. Translation issue. Oh, actually, wait a second. I do have a meme that I think would be very right now.
Darn translators, they don't know what the heck they're doing, do they, Joe?
Yeah, they're not very bright people.
No. I'm not saying that whatsoever. I'm sure they had a reason to say
No. I was ribbing you, translator person.
No, I do have the perfect one though for this. It's like you see this kid go over. This is pertinent. There it is. When you finally find the right translation for a difficult word. So the joys of language differences. Anyway, babble. Anyway, okay. Now, in close, we're gonna start the descent into our prayer. So you got the whole concept of Christ's prayer. We already talked about the whole strength behind him being in us, and it's him and the Father and the Spirit are in us. It's like you have God himself. I think it's funny how the whole, it's clear to me now that John is basically saying, hey, Christ, God, same thing. One's not lesser than the other. And in the same light, you have the Spirit, which is the force that is the animating, like, attribute, I guess you could say, of God Himself. And so when we have God's Spirit in us, you have the Father and Son, because it's Christ in the Father and the Father in Christ, and then them in us. And how that, you get what I'm saying, though. It's like, it's that unity. But wait a second. Where are we right now? What domain are we on? Are we in heaven?
No.
We're on. Right.
Like, where are you going?
Wait a second. We're on Earth. But I thought we couldn't be united with God until we died. I thought we wouldn't be like united with Him and be part of that light unless we died and transcended the demiurge and the logos and went into. You see what I'm getting at?
Yeah, what are you, Gnostic?
It's like, you see what I'm getting at? Like, we are allowed to be in and with Him on this earthly domain. That is absolutely what the New Testament is saying. There's no doubt about that whatsoever. And so this is where we get. Now, I do want to make some very pointed comments to jar the brain, to make that noggin do some cogwheel turning, okay? Do you remember when we began our session last week? And I said, Gnostic beliefs have pervaded the church. Do you remember what John said in 1 John 4 about the Antichrist?
That it was said to come and is already here.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember what was said in John 16 when it was it John 15 or 16 when it? Well, I'll just say it then. When Christ says, it'll come a time when people kill you thinking they're doing God a service. There's like twistings of things, and it's like, so you have. So we were looking at the different ways that Christianity went in the first couple of centuries. Those that say that Christ was only divine, those that say that Christ was only human. But there's a narrower path where you have he was both. A Gnostic belief is that he was divine, and I still, even after looking at things this week, I still believe that concept is very much part of the worldly church. It's like that God is just so other. I forgot this, and this is something very important. Gnostics also believed that the God of the Old Testament, the reason why they said that the God of the Old Testament was evil, some of them, like a small portion, said that the God of the Old Testament was evil, was because of like how much death and like war and stuff like that. Don't tell me that's not a current problem with modern society today. A lot of people say, "Oh, I love Jesus, but like that God of the Old Testament." And the
Big G God.
No. The demiurge was.
The demiurge was evil.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That Gnostic belief has definitely lived throughout the ages. And then you have going home, the concept of dying, but that this is not home. This is like a prison, and that we are. It's a weird. There's a perfect way of
Testing ground.
Yes, that's it. It's like a testing ground. It's like I forgot to. Oh my goodness! I can't believe I forgot to do this. This is like such a big part of what I had planned for tonight. Hold on.
That was a big part of like that.
The Apocryphon of John. We got to talk about the Apocryphon of John.
Oh, I forgot there was an Apocryphon of John. Oh, I'm getting so forgetful.
So we got carried away with the tunic. Mom.
Nations. Thank you. 19 semesters of art.
My computer is really not wanting to bring up the Apocrypha because it's apocryphal. But anyway, I think I just killed my computer. No, I didn't.
Oh,
okay.
no.
This would, oh gosh. Okay, how about this? Just to make it work. Okay, it's working to an extent. Okay. Hold on. Okay. Just please. Okay. I'm going to talk, and I'm only going to talk because we're so close to done. And if any of you lose contact with me, text me immediately, please. It's on the verge. And so I do want to end this before it gets any worse. And so I'm starting to lose control of my computer. So we're just going to go with that. I'm going to bring up the Apocrypha and I'll read it to you. So okay, the Apocrypha of John. Now, I'm going to read some sections, right? Now, we know what John sounds like. We know the way that John writes. It's pretty clear. He has a special style. And it sounds just like this, doesn't it? And the Holy Spirit completed the divine autogene, his son, together with Barbello, that he may attend the mighty and invisible virginal spirits as the divine autogene, the Christ whom he had honored with a mighty voice. He came forth through the forethought, and in the invisible virginal spirits placed the divine autogenes of truth over everything. And he subjected to him every authority and the truth which is in him, that he may know the all which have been called with a name exalted above every name. For that name will be mentioned to those who are worthy of it. Sounds so much like John. And and the Archon created 7 powers for themselves. Oh, that one potentially because of the 7-ness there, but the come on.
Sounds like Scientology.
Right. Sounds like Satan. So created 7 powers for themselves. And the powers created for themselves 6 angels for each one until they became 365 angels. And these are the bodies belonging with the names. 365, remember, is the number. No. Solomon is 375. It was the Egyptian calendar year, similar to ours. Anyway, and these are the bodies belonging with the names. The first is Athoth, as he has a sheep's face. The second is Aloio, he has a donkey's face. The third is Astaphios, he has a hyena's face. And the fourth is Yao, he has a serpent's face with 7 heads. The fifth is Sabaoth, he has a dragon's face. The sixth is Adonin, he had a monkey's face. The 7th is okay. I can understand because there are visions of things like that. Okay, but I do have to do this. I do. Just bear with me. Oh, come on. Oh, there we go. Now, this is just truth. Now, to the present day, sexual intercourse continued due to the chief archon. Now, let me go back in one paragraph. Gave, he set over the fire and the wind, and Elohim, he set over the water and the earth. And these he called with the names Cain and Abel with a view to deceive. Now, up to the present day, sexual intercourse continued due to the chief archon, and he planted sexual desire in her who belongs to Adam. And he produced through intercourse the copies of the bodies, and he can inspire them with his counterfeit spirit. So, John. And, I can totally see his authorship here. No, we have seals and stuff like that. There are seals and interesting things here. Now, this is how it ends. And the Savior presented these, and it's much longer than Thomas and Mary. And the Savior presented these things to him that he might write them down and keep them secure. And he said to them, "Cursed be everyone who will exchange these ideas for a gift or for food or for drink or for clothing or for any other such thing. And these things were presented to him in a mystery. And immediately he disappeared from him. And he went to his fellow disciples and related to them what the Savior had told him. Jesus Christ, amen.
Now, what were you reading from?
The Apocryphon of John.
Oh. I thought you were going to read the book of Revelation or something, the way you were setting that up.
And this is and yes, the Apocryphon of John, if I remember right from what I read yesterday, was it also talks about women becoming men, and which is interesting because you got some wait a minute, we'll talk about women becoming men later, but when they took women, no, female. Okay. He made another creature in the form of a woman according to the likeness of the epinoia which had appeared to him, and he brought the part which had taken from the power of the man into the female creature, and not, as Moses said, his rib bone. And there were sections too where it like discounts like what like Old Testament stuff said. It's like, no, that's not what was real. Let me tell you what really happened. And it's like they're actually doing the Old Testament idea of counteracting what was said before. When notice one thing about the New Testament is it never refutes the Old Testament, like ever. It never actually says, oh yeah, the Old Testament had it wrong.
It refers to it a lot of times. It
refers to it, but it does not say that Moses was mistaken when this was said. And that there's a lot of other so that's another way of testing the spirits too. But anyway, but a lot of it's more like a vision, and so it's very similar to with John, like John's writing itself. But there's certain sections where I'm like, oh, this is so like John. Okay.
Well, now you can see why they think John was Gnostic. I mean, if he wrote the Apocryphon,
I can see it through the visions. Like the visions that he had in the Apocryphon of John, the visions that he supposedly had are similar. They're not exactly the same, but they're very similar. And makes sense to that. But it is something like itching ears would like to hear.
the thing is, it seems like
I forgot.
It seems like the Gnostics wrote the Apocryphon since they were claiming that John was Gnostic.
Yeah, so they might have been trying to set the record straight. Another thing too, though, is there was a big push in terms of like what Paul wrote regarding like was it Peter that said I just read all this last night, so it's all clashing together. Where it says don't believe the myths. Don't believe the he's talking about like there was another section talking about the itching ears. That's Paul. But there's a section where it says like don't be led astray by every myth that comes your way, basically. And this is remember that Judaism had taken on a lot of mystic imagery, such as like the golem. And there's a lot of like mythology that began. You can actually look it up. You just go on and say Jewish mythology. It's like you have the Bible and you had Jewish mythology, and it was basically Christianity had started to create its own mythology, and so that's what one thing that was being criticized was don't do this. Don't have a mythology. And in this sense, the word myth had to do with like those types of stories. And I'm not talking about like the myth had a slightly different nuance to it, but it's very clearly said that you should not follow every which way. Anyway, there's so much that can be said with that. But anyway, so that was John. God's only begotten Son. And I'll just summarize it in a very quick statement. When it says that Christ was God's only begotten Son, it had to do with like that the concept of everything, it goes back to the prayer with I and you and me. So that's what was being referenced in that. There's other things there. There are so many things going into it. There is actually a bit of a question in terms of the translation of the only begotten Son, but the concept is clear. The concept is Christ, the Father, they're in so much unity that it's hard to separate the two. That the only distinction was that Christ was a human on this earth, that through his death, we were able to obtain eternal life. But Christ, a human, was in unity with the Father, who was not human, who was not made human, but humans were made in his likeness. And but the unity that they shared was like they were just one, and they are one. And that's why I didn't even realize I phrased it exactly just like John did. Like, because he was with God and he was God. So, and it's the same thing. Like when it comes to our role in this as well, that when we allow our lives to be transformed and reborn, one thing that Gnostics didn't believe was that Christ's death was necessarily the key to salvation. There was a way, it was more like your own personal enlightenment could attain that level, which I think has a modicum of truth to it. I'm not getting into that. We'll get to that when Revelation comes around. But you know what I'm talking about, I think. But we'll get to that when Revelation comes around. Not now.
I mean, I think back to Jesus and God being one. I think that's why it's so important when he said to them before Abraham was, I am.
Yep, that was another thing too. Yeah, absolutely. All of these statements, there are 7 I am statements. And it's like, yeah, before Abraham was, I am. Come on, John. Come on. You get, like, he absolutely was saying, I am. I am. Like, I am Yahweh. And so that whole, so John is really, really saying, I am not, that Jesus was not the demiurge. And that the Logos, or the Logos, was God himself totally, with no other, like, nothing else about it. So, all right. Anything that anyone wanted to talk about before we pray out of this one? Cool. All right, let's go ahead and yeah, this was a fun one. Thank you, Father. This is I am still in awe that we can come together like this and look and dude, how quick was it that we were able to look at the difference between the word for outer garment and tunic, and how quickly compare the two and see where it was referenced in the Greek, in the Septuagint, in the New Testament. How quick did we do that? How it was just so very lightning speed. How long would that have taken to find not long ago? We thank you for this ease of access to information. We just beg you that it doesn't allow us to become wise in our own eyes, and that we continue to have our eyes firmly planted on you. Thank you for your love. This is so cool how quickly we can look at things that were so heretical in the fact that a lot of their scriptures were burned, and only a few records remained. But now they're on the internet, and you can easily, although some of them are fragmented, we can easily just pull them up and compare them and say, oh, this is the difference there, and we have this one. We couldn't have done this before. Thank you for solidifying our faith through this process. Thank you for allowing us to have the opportunity to look at things that are in this sense wayward, but that we are able to look at them and become all the firmer, looking at the misunderstandings that others had when trying to come closer to you. Thank you for showing them mercy as well, for when they were, even though they were lost in their ways in that sense. Father, you love them so much you died for them too. Thank you for opening the doors for us to see these things. Thank you for allowing us to truly see you and listen to that voice saying, make the way straight. We just ask your hand of grace and peace upon everyone here tonight, especially with the slippery road. That's going to be a bit of a hassle. And we just ask your hand of blessing as well on all of us here tonight. This is truly a unique group. And it's all through your hand. Thank you for directing this. Thank you for loving us. In the name of Jesus Christ, we pray.
Yes. Amen.
All right, let's see if I can actually control my computer.